This is a talk that I gave at Product World in beautiful Opatija, Croatia. I can't remember, it's like a week ago or something. A lot of you know me, strategic product management consultant. Lately, I've been doing a lot in terms of digital transformation for non-tech companies. And I'm assuming you guys can hear me, right? I should ask. Beautiful. Yeah, this bio is kind of old, but I do a fair amount of speaking and now consider myself an expert in personal effectiveness using Gen AI. Uh, Particularly relevant from my experience, I think, is I've been doing this a really long time. So I've seen change come and go, all kinds of stuff in product management. I have a feeling something odd is going on or something is changing. I've been a consultant for a long time, which means I see a bunch of companies and do a lot of activity on LinkedIn. So I talk to people. I've really gone on a deep dive for the last 18 months, helping people be more productive with Gen AI, mostly people outside of product, senior leaders, CEOs, CTOs. And that's been really eye-opening and has shaped my perspective. And I've only recently put a name on my tendency to not believe everything, to question everything, to expect evidence before I believe anything. I consider myself a highly critical thinker. And this is not your typical LinkedIn, everything's great kind of thing. This is the canary in the coal mine. And I guess that's kind of how I feel about this presentation. This was very timely. This came out the same week, I believe, that I gave my presentation. Mika Kaufman is CEO of Fiverr, and he sent out an email in which he used radical candor. And he said, AI is coming for your job. It's coming for my job too. So that's the spirit of this presentation. This is our path today. We'll address or ask the question, is it going under change? I want to take a quick detour and talk about what PM is. I will list the factors I think that are most influential. I will pull out my crystal ball and tell you how I think PM is going to evolve. And then we'll talk a little bit about how folks can prepare if you agree with me that things are changing. So first, is it undergoing change? I'm going to try to do a poll. Let's see if you guys get this. I'm curious how quickly, if you think about how PM is changing, right? Everything in tech changes all the time. But when you think about PM, do you think it's mostly static? Do you just see it kind of evolving as normal, or do you think it's radically changing? Do you guys, let me see if I can move this window. I really don't know how to use this thing. I don't know if I have to, I'm going to say radically changing and submit. So pretty good proportion of the people see, whoa, it's going. I guess we don't have that many votes. Needs to evolve, but I'm looking to see how do you feel about it now? So does it show me 9 responses? That's probably pretty close. So pretty even. Some folks just see it as evolving. Others see it as changing radically. That's interesting. At the event, I think a lot more people thought it was changing radically. But if we look at the news, we really see highly conspicuous layoffs of product people. The first shocking thing is that they call out product management. Years into this, people outside of tech still don't know what it is. I talk to people now outside of tech all the time. Nobody has any idea. And some kind of marquee, well-known organizations have restructured, let PMs go. And what's interesting about that is they have signaled that they want to do that to accelerate decision making. They want to act more like startups, which tells me they do not see product management as an enabler in that respect. And that's been my experience. I work in Europe. I work with global B2B companies. They do not have a startup mentality. And I think most leadership that I come across is willing to accept or tolerate PM. They see some value. But do they think it's critical? Probably not. If we look at the job market, just the, you know, programming jobs, engineering jobs have fallen by more than 50% in just a few years. And we are a function, our numbers are a function of engineering jobs. So that should tell you something. This came out of a Medium article. I wasn't able to recreate it, but directionally it makes sense. Seems a little extreme, but there are far fewer PM openings. And my experience doing a little research is that there are, quite a number of openings, but they're for like AI PMs, AI positions. Numbers coming out of the UK validate that. And, there are studies coming out from, I guess, reasonably reputable people that see pretty high number of, tasks that are performed by knowledge workers, white collar roles, being disrupted. So that number seems pretty reasonable to me. I think in the next few years, we will see a decrease of maybe 30% in PM jobs. And there are some interesting other kind of metrics. This one compares the unemployment rate of new grads to the general unemployment rate, and it's usually lower. People out of college find jobs, companies will hire people because they're cheap and so forth. But it is definitely, there's a trend that is going, more and more negative, which means this is not a great time to be graduating college. If you know somebody in that position, or if you're on social media, LinkedIn, you may see people saying, man, I graduated from an Ivy League school. I have $150,000 in loans and I cannot get a job. So very rough. A lot of anecdotal stuff. This is actually some data to support it. And I think there's just a ton of uncertainty in the market around AI. So we're seeing these companies reduce their workforces and they look at it as a cost-cutting opportunity, and that should spook you. Unimaginative leadership, that's one of the first things they will do is just cut people. They will manage costs. And, there's a lot of general economic uncertainty. We're still not sure how this regulatory thing is going to pan out. The EU AI Act is coming into force, and my experience working with companies is they don't know what it means. Their legal counsel has looked into it. They don't necessarily understand AI, so it's a bit of a mess in a lot of places. As product managers, I don't see us talking about it, but it's going to have serious implications to the solutions we deliver and the way we use AI in our organizations. And yeah, there's just not a lot of job security. Managers that are looking out, 45% of them think they'll reduce force in 2025. And this is after like at least close to record layoffs for the last few years. So there is still, cutting that is going to happen this year. I'm convinced. I think so. And now we see all these companies talking about being AI first. And now we see the first kind of bounce back with Klarna. But these companies have made it very public that they are placing big bets on AI. And this one came from the CEO of Shopify. And I think these are common things that now it's expected that people use AI in everything they do. You're not going to hire people unless you can prove that AI can't do it. And maybe for now, that's going to be easier. I think it will get progressively more difficult. And of course, the expectation is that AI gets infused into the product. Very important to product managers. It's just going to be a very common leadership expectation. And there will be tons of competitive pressure. It will get over marketed, kind of like the cloud did, like every trend, if we think about the hype cycle. So these companies are coming out and saying, look, we're placing a big bet. And some of them will have to retreat. But I think we're going to see more and more of this. And the thing that I think we should be concerned about is they are saying expectations of performance are going to go up. I believe, as a cynic, they are laying the groundwork to let people go. They are tightening up performance reviews. We're seeing that at Google, Microsoft, and I think they're ramping up to let even more people go. Before we get much further, we should talk about what is PM in the first place. I don't think there's really much alignment, but if we read the books, read the stuff on LinkedIn, we should be finding compelling opportunities that align with our core competencies and our business objectives. We should be thinking and acting strategically. We have an important alignment accountability, I think. We can help the organization become market and customer centric. We read a lot about data-driven decision making, rational decision making based on some of the factors I talked about. And I'm curious if we think about that definition, I think we all probably have it in our head, this really classical definition of being market facing, looking for opportunities, driving the organization in that level. I'm curious how many of you, what percentage of organizations do you think practice product management in close to this idealized way? Imprecise question, I get that. But do you think most of them do? Do you think few of them do? Really curious what you think. Are we practicing what we preach? Okay, we have some votes coming in. Okay, so far, fewer than 30%. It's remarkable, right? I think we could ask this question more precisely and get a lot more insight, but it's remarkable that a pretty big majority of us think product management really isn't practiced the way it probably should be, or the way it's described in LinkedIn and in books and all that kind of stuff. So what is PM really? If we look behind the curtain, I don't think there's a consistent definition. That's probably intuitive to all of us, but ask yourself some of these questions, like what degree do you need? Who sets the global standards? What's the most popular certification? Nobody cares. I know that's oversimplified, but nobody cares about certifications. Go search job postings and see how many of them require some kind of certification in product management. And if we compare it to other disciplines like project management, we are massively less mature. And I personally don't buy the argument that project management is much easier to contain and all that stuff. Maybe product management is a bit more amorphous, but there are all kinds of projects done in all kinds of places. There are a bunch of variables there too, but there are certifications that you actually have to get a job and much clearer expectations of what this role does. I don't buy this is an art, it's just ambiguous by nature. Yeah, obviously there are differences, but I don't think we can rationalize away our lack of maturity from a definition perspective, definition of the profession. Here's another slide with just a little more data. You can take a look at that. Stuff like career path is clearly inconsistent. Titles are super inconsistent. And this is decades into this journey. So I want to challenge you to think about product management from a different perspective a little bit. So I look at product management as a risk mitigation strategy. Our industry, tech, learned that if you just let engineers run wild, the results can really be unpredictable. And we need somebody who's really paying attention to the market, paying attention to the business, and keeping engineering on the right path. And that path is to generating business success. In brutal triage, PM would be one of the first roles to go because great products get built all the time without product managers. Mills, who's on this call, and I talk about this all the time, he says somebody's doing product management. I don't buy that. They're doing the things product managers do, but they're not doing it as a discipline. Some things just make sense. You need to do them. But all kinds of great products get built by just technicians who sit in a garage somewhere and crank something out. Happens all the time. Important, but not necessarily critical. And if you really take a step back, you can think about PM as a leadership experiment. So we know we're supposed to be leaders. And the question is it viable? Can you separate authority and accountability and really get the results you want? And if you have a role that's focused on doing that, does it generate the ROI? Regardless of your opinion, think about this from leadership's perspective, because this is probably, at least subconsciously, how leadership is thinking about it. My PMs are an insurance policy that I do the right thing. And yeah, I mean, I expect a lot of them. There's no way, it's a minefield to give them tons of authority. And yeah, should I pay this coordination tax? They rally the troops, but is that worth the money I pay? And some organizations are saying, hey, we tried it. It's not worth it. The friction it causes isn't worth it. And you can also, if you're cynical, look at us as a very convenient scapegoat. If things don't go well, engineering just says, well, I'm just implementing what you told me, even though in a lot of cases they have their own agenda. A lot of companies know they need to be market or customer centric. So having some PMs around kind of acknowledge that. But in the end, the people, are really delivery oriented. And it's just a habit. In tech, you have product managers. And I think some people are questioning that now.
So
So my experience, very clear. PMs, actually almost no roles are really strategic. They are obsessed with operational things, and with PMs, it's about delivery. Very difficult to make a clear business case for a PM to say the PM resulted in this much revenue. We are just obsessed with delivery. I scream this all the time. Building it is relatively easy. It can be super hard, but it's much easier than building a viable business. And the numbers prove that. The failure rate of startups of products, it's very clear. A lot of people can build a product. Very few can build a successful business around it. And I'm going to tell you that if we look at that list of idealized tasks, if an organization wanted to, they could distribute some of those. Marketing could do some of those things. Sales could do some of those things. I'm not suggesting that's the ideal thing, but it's a tax surface. It's a risk. So what are the factors that are changing PM? Tons of macroeconomic uncertainty now, thanks to my home country, the United States. Nils too. I don't know if other Americans are here, but nobody knows what's going to happen. And part of that uncertainty is driven by, the disruptive potential of AI, especially Gen AI. It is raising the bar for PMs. Don't doubt that for a moment. And I think these people that think, oh, there will just be tons more opportunities for product managers are a little naive. I don't think they understand how businesses get run. Just my take. I acknowledge that I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. We see clear trends that people are kind of done with innovation for a while, at least high risk innovation. They are adopting this finance mindset and saying, invest in, I expect a business case. I have a big client based in Germany. They do charging of electric vehicles. And we had a long discussion with their leadership who say every single thing we do should have a business case. That's a whole nother webinar. I disagree with that take, but that's their mindset. It's this finance mindset. Show me the money. And I'm curious, I overlooked this as a poll. In the session, I asked people, what do they think is driving the most change? I'm not going to stop and do that now. But take your pick. I don't even know that it's that relevant. These things are converging to create what I consider a perfect storm. How is PM going to evolve?
I'm not going to.
I think these are the things that are going to influence it. It's going to be about the money, as I said, and the commercial impact. There are going to be huge expectations that cycle times will be much lower, and you're going to be expected to sell. I guess those are three different ways to say it's going to be commercially oriented, but I think PM will specialize. First of all, there will be a chunk of PMs in organizations where it's acknowledged and working today that won't change much. They have leaders who already get product. It's a small percentage of organizations. I think we all feel that, but they get it. They enable their PMs, and PM can add a lot of value if it's enabled and developed the right way. I think some PMs are going to have to become more like general managers today. That means P&L accountability, having explicit authority. They will be responsible for the business. And that's interesting because that will leave them fewer cycles to do definition and delivery. I think some are going to become 0 to 1 specialists. They're going to take low code, no code. Very quickly, they're going to do discovery. They're going to build something. They're going to get it out, a real MVP, something that is really market facing. And once it starts getting to PMF, they'll move on to the next thing. They don't babysit stuff. And they might hand it off to engineering. It may not be a handoff to a product manager. Let's see. But these people have really specialized skills and can help you experiment or get something to market extremely quickly, extremely inexpensively. And then, growth will continue to take off. We have growth PMs today. They will probably broaden their perspective a little bit and be involved in go to market, which means like in B2B in sales as well. But there are gaps today in go to market. A lot of marketing organizations are ineffective. Sales is coin operated and really focused on one thing.
I'm not gonna
So
I'm
this
not
is
gonna
how I think these are some of the splinters. I think in 5, 7 years, you'll see this new, I don't know what they will call it, but hey, I really run the business. I'm expected, I carry a number in executive speak. So at the end, yeah, it's a shame I made this a webinar. Would love to talk about this. Maybe I'll schedule something else where we can talk about it. How should you prepare as a PM? I think these are all pretty clear corollaries to all the stuff I talked about, right? Focus on commercial impact and do it conspicuously. Figure out what metric you're going to move, figure out, how you're going to get credit for moving it, because moving it is one thing, getting credit is another. And not all people, not all cultures are particularly good at standing up and saying, hey, I did this. I would obsess on GTM. If you want to start learning about the business side of tech, start with go to market. How does marketing work? How does sales work? How are we segmenting? Are segments aligned all the way through the process? For a lot of people, I would be formulating a plan B. It's an uncomfortable question, but I would be asking, if I can't be a product manager, what would I do?
I'm not gonna
Because I am convinced there will be fewer jobs. And we're already seeing a really rough market, a lot of people out of work for a long time.
I'm not gonna
I would master AI. I would start with personal productivity. I would just be really good at creating, prompting, creating agents, all that kind of stuff. I would be investing in understanding low code, no code. If you want to double down and actually do that, obviously more, but I wouldn't just sit back. It is going to become the way a lot of stuff gets done, a lot of early validation, and then actual products will be built. These platforms will mature to the point that you can get something out in a couple of hours and it will scale eventually to millions of users.
I'm not gonna
Uh, but the big thing is do your analysis. You've seen mine, may not agree with it. That's great. Come up with your own conclusions and place your bets, double down, figure out where things are going. Most of us think, or a lot of us think, things are changing quickly, about half of us. So I would not sit back and just wait for things to develop. I think that is a recipe for disaster. Place your bets, figure out where you think things are going. And, I do a lot of coaching. Your most valuable professional asset is your network. It's not your experience. It's not your domain expertise. It's your network. There are a lot of incompetent people that have great jobs because they have good networks. And there are a lot of really talented people who are sitting on the bench right now because they didn't start building their network until they had to. And it's something you just can't build overnight. So, no deep insight. What I'm telling you to do is get moving, become more business oriented. And unless you're like some standout, and be honest with yourself, you're working for a marquee company in just a no brainer domain, I would think about what is my plan B if I end up being made redundant, as they say in the UK,
I'm not
and
gonna
the job market for the next few years sucks.
I'm not gonna
How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to keep myself busy? How can I position myself so that maybe I'm still in product somehow? By the way, I think there will be a swing back in maybe 5 to 7 years. I think there's going to be a lot of cutting for the next few years. Of course, they will over-index on AI and this cost reduction, and it will swing back, but I don't think we will see the golden days of product management anymore. And the way I would assess the potential impact is to start outside yourself. Think about how will the product business change? What is going to happen to SaaS? What is going to happen to applications the way we know them today? What's going to happen with APIs and integrating different solutions? How will that impact product development, the process that generates these products? What is the impact on the roles that are doing product development? And then how does that impact you? Work from the outside in is my guidance. And man, it's not easy. How is the business of product going to change? I don't know. But if you don't start thinking about it, you'll never figure it out. And then as a professional, be prepared to answer some of these questions. How can I quantify my commercial impact? Can I speak business?
I'm not gonna.
Uh, I would focus on differentiation. I told you innovation may not be as important as it was. Differentiation is really what matters. So become an expert. And, I'll do another talk at some point, but if innovation doesn't result in differentiation, it's probably a waste of time. And if differentiation doesn't result in moats, it's probably of limited value because you're just putting yourself on a treadmill. Big brain dump. I get that. By the way, if you're a leader, these are the things I would be looking at. Professional development for you and your team. I would be educating my board and my executive leadership. Don't expect them to get what's coming or how it's going to happen. I would step up and say, I can help us look at our strategy and figure out where AI is going to impact it, how we can leverage it, what the threats are that we need to be preparing for. And you can just help your organization develop the right mindset because, yeah, things are changing. There will be a significant impact on leadership. I am now putting together a bunch of material on that I'll share soon, very soon, I hope. So you can think about these things. Some things won't change radically. Some things will evolve and some things will change radically. So it would be interesting for you can take this, I'll make the slides available on LinkedIn or something, but ask yourself and then look at the right side and figure out what you need to start doing to be prepared. And if you want to go into leadership, realize not everything is going to change. Not everything about product management is going to change. I guess the high art is knowing what falls in what category. Here's another one of this radical candor memo that I talked about. And this is a super relevant question because I think we're not all doomed. Some subset of PMs today are going to have the time of their life. They're going to ride one of the biggest changes ever. They're going to be more valuable than ever. Their work is going to be more fulfilling and interesting than ever. And a lot of people are just going to suffer.
I'm not gonna.
That's my take.
I'm not gonna.
So I'm curious,
I'm not gonna.
how
I'm
are
not
we
gonna.
feeling about, let's say the next 3 to 5 years and what's happening to prospects for product managers? Are we calm? Are we just a little concerned? Are we freaking out a little bit? I don't know where to put myself. I've been thinking about it long enough. I think I'll just mark myself concerned. Freaking out doesn't really help. But if you haven't thought about it this way, it's a natural response. Yeah, freaking out is kind of the default state for a lot of product managers. But there we go. I apologize. I just wanted to get through it. How quickly? It wasn't too bad, I hope. Let me look at the chat. I would love to see, let's see. I'm
I'm not
looking for
gonna.
the people who are just telling me I'm completely chicken littling this whole thing and full of shit. Wow.
I'm not gonna.
Wow. A lot of comment.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting. Is the reduction in workforce really because of Gen AI? I think last year we weren't sure. I think this year it will be much clearer. We will really see it listed as a rationale. There won't be any doubt, I think, after this year. That's my prediction. Um,
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Outsourcing, but AI automation. That's interesting. By the way, I see the changes that are happening being very analogous to what happened to the auto industry in the 80s. I lived in a city that had a big General Motors plant, And they were telling them robots aren't going to replace you. It's going to make your job more secure. It's going to help you. And it was just a line of shit, to keep everybody calm. And I'm seeing those same messages come out now. Maybe you are. I would be super nervous. And it's crazy this time because, technology has displaced a lot of traditional physical work, knowledge workers, like with the internet and all this stuff. Hey, that became our time. But now we're starting. We're the ones that are going to be most impacted.
I'm not gonna. I'm
Just
not gonna.
going down through here.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so
I'm not gonna.
yeah, needing a business case can kill innovation. And in this organization, it's really impacting morale. Product managers are like, for every little thing, some of them obvious, I'm trying to prove to you that we should do it. And I've always said that trying to make a business case at the feature level is very hard and ends up being fantasy. Ends up being, most of the time just made up numbers that nobody ever checks again.
I'm not gonna.
Separating GTM from growth, I totally agree. But I see what we call growth today expanding so that as a broader kind of GTM role. So it might erode some of what product marketing does today. We'll probably have a closer relationship with sales than is the case today. A lot of growth today is consumer oriented and really about, like pirate metrics and stuff. I think that's going to change somewhat, evolve.
I'm not gonna.
Um,
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
so
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
yeah, guys, I screwed this thing up, but I wanted to experiment. I'm paying for Teams. I wanted to see what their webinar story was. Never again. I hate it. I hate not being able to talk, but it's kind of funny. I can say whatever I want. All you guys can do is scream at me in the chat. Um, I really appreciate you showing up. There's Nils has his hand up. I
I'm not
will
gonna.
go to the bottom of the chat.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Thanks, Ronnie. I hope it was insightful. I hope it stimulates thought, right? All predictions are wrong. If they're right, it's probably, chance if you haven't done it time and time again. So hopefully I've given you some food for thought.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not
I
gonna.
could create a chat. Did I just annoy people or did we actually learn something? Nils, are you going to type a question or do you not realize your hand is up?
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
It's
I'm
like
not
2
gonna.
o'clock in the morning where Nils says he might have fallen back asleep.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, product ops. That's an interesting question. I think the case for product ops is harder to make than it is for product management. So just like some orgs are going to say we don't need product managers, other orgs are going to say I'm not going to spend all this money just to make them more effective, right? We probably believe that's shooting themselves in the foot. I do,
I'm not gonna.
but it's reality. I've been a consultant for a long time, and I just have had these conversations with leadership, and I've seen what happens when I leave, and it's usually not encouraging.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so sorry, Nils. I guess there kind of is a way. Let me try something. I'm going to try this with you, Nils. I'm going to make you, I think I can make you a presenter.
I'm not
Please
gonna.
don't do anything radical,
I'm not gonna. I'm not
but I
gonna.
think you can talk now.
I'm not gonna.
Try that, Nils. And I'll do that if anybody else wants to talk in the time we have left.
So I'm supposedly not muted now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'll even put my camera on. I'm not really camera ready. It's not 2 in the morning. It's 6 in the morning. Well, it's 6:30 now.
Cool.
But yeah, this has been very interesting, Greg. I kind of wrote a book in the comments. So I have a lot of thoughts, not necessarily disagreeing, but in some areas I think there's more. I think there's a lot. Obviously, this is a very short presentation, so you didn't have a chance to drill into everything. One question I had that I thought was probably the most interesting comment I put in here.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
We know the project have the PMP and all this stuff. They have the PMBOK, all that kind of thing. I don't think very many project managers actually use those tools either, right? I mean, like PMs, we don't have we don't have a certification or a BOC, body of knowledge. Project managers do, but I think the reality is that mostly they don't use them. I mean, they're lucky that they've had the PMP, but they've had it for like 40 years. You know, our oldest certification is like 10 years old or something. So
But would you agree that their profession, even if it's objectively immature, whatever, is way more mature or understood than product management?
I'm not gonna.
As a profession, yes. I mean, because they have a certification that everybody agrees on.
Yeah.
I don't think in terms of a practice they really are.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I don't know anything about project management, to be perfectly honest. I just know if you go to project management job postings, they expect you to be certified. And if you want to be a product or a project manager, it's just a given that you will get one of these like prints or, whatever.
Yeah. But it takes, it's super easy to get. It's practically, it's harder than a certified Scrum Master, but not that hard.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nils, anybody else want to say something? I'll make you a presenter if you promise not to like end the meeting or do something horrible. Shane, long time no talk. Let me make you a presenter too.
I'm not gonna.
You should be able to speak now, Sean. Hey, man.
How you doing?
Can't complain.
Good. Yeah, great presentation. I don't know. Hope I can lend some perspective to the group here. But from my seat, I work in a non-tech company, but we're doing a lot of tech work, kind of tangentially. And what I'm seeing is just really, really rapid iteration. And I made a comment in the chat too. I think that it just kind of seems like over the short term and the midterm that companies are going to be able to start disrupting each other a lot faster, which I think it's just going to make it more difficult to maintain a business sustainably over a longer time horizon. So I just wonder if, that creates a more precarious career environment where you're sort of placing bets on businesses, and you have to do that more intentionally. Like the failure rates of companies, I think, are going to be higher, but also there'll be a lot more opportunities. But I think the windows of opportunity will open and close faster, as things speed up and iteration happens faster. So I think that the mentality is you're going to have to be really lean and agile in choosing where you work, what projects you work on. And I mean, I think about investing in a portfolio where you diversify over your investments. I think that people will need to take on more side projects and maybe even like fractional work or contract work and kind of hedge their careers. Personally, I feel a little bit vulnerable that I'm in a full-time role and I don't have like a lucrative side hustle or anything going on right now, but I think at some point I'll need to have something like that. Just my perspective on things.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, Shane. All makes sense to me. And Nils made this point that moats and differentiation are going to be very short-lived. I think there's no doubt about that. Bushra,
I'm not gonna.
Presenter.
Hello.
Hello.
There she is. Hello.
Well, what's up? What I wanted to say is while you were presenting, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Turing Fest and Intercom's CPO had the opening keynote, and that was so interesting. While you were presenting, I was thinking of his presentation, and I think that we're a bit too early with thinking about how to stay relevant in this market, because what he said, and I strongly believe this is kind of what's happening in this year right now, is that they blew up the way they've been working for the past 10 years, and they're experimenting. And they see how the roles are blurring, how the lines are basically disappearing between the designer, the engineer, the product manager, and basically what your role says in the past becomes now something like do what you can, and they're figuring it out. And
I'm not gonna,
therefore, I'm a sponge, and I don't have a very concrete opinion, but I just wanted to share about this presentation, and just to share my opinion that
I'm not
this
gonna,
year, every day, every week, every day, something new is happening in the AI space that we cannot predict at the moment, where or how we can shape our skills and in which direction we should go. Um,
I'm not
and
gonna,
the only thing that I believe will help us stay relevant next year is whatever is happening and changing every day, we just need to play with the tools and figure out how to make them work for us. That's the only thing that I'm trying to do. And I'm definitely part of the group who's freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is happening here? Like every day.
Yeah. So I agree. So I get what you're saying, Busha. It's risk reward. So what I would try to do is align my bets with no-brainer stuff anyway. And if you look at that slide where I said prepare yourself, you're not going to regret getting more commercially knowledgeable. You're not going to regret learning more about go-to-market. So given your skills, given your career aspirations, try to place bets that make sense anyway. I don't think most of us are going to regret learning a low-code environment. We may not end up using it. So all that stuff, I don't think they're risky in terms of just being a waste of time, probably. But it is risk reward. The people who double down and make a bet, if they're right, they will be better prepared than others.
So there I agree, like in general, having the good product manager skills or doubling down on the good product manager skills anyway, which is missing almost everywhere anyway, exaggerating of course, like it's missing in many places anyway. So that I agree. I'm just not sure if we will continue working this way.
Yeah, I don't think we will. Some change will come. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but Gauss, you had your hand up, so I made you a presenter. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Good to see you again, and thanks for the chat.
I'm not gonna.
I think one thing we don't talk about enough is anxiety. I don't know if it's okay to talk about it here.
I'm not gonna. I'm anxious as hell. Yeah.
And there was something. I mean, you did one of the options in your poll was freaking out. I think these are anxious times also because of how communication works these days. Like I'm sure the same thing was happening when the automation boom was coming in, just things were, and when the cloud was coming, was being developed. But it's just that people didn't have this kind of insight. Like nobody was posting updates every day, or that is not how the industry or the market was shaped. And I think that is just a function of these times. And this is just my perspective that I just try to cut out the noise that, change will happen. I don't think that we can do anything about it. But as we are, I think this is a good conversation that, yeah, it's time to look at what you really want to do. Are you looking at yourself as a business? Are you looking at yourself as an employee? Maybe what ambitions you have, because in times of change, I think there's also times. So it's a time of opportunity to make a shift. And this is, if you're a PM, part of the job has been transformation. Within a company, and maybe this is a time to transform yourself then, because we have already been there, been part of that exercise in some way, if not led it completely.
Great point. So I take a lot of away from that, and one of them is our need to self-care and take care of our mental health is just going to go up. So starting to think about that, what it takes you to be healthy and happy, adopting healthier habits, like all that stuff, all that cliched stuff, I think is just going to be important. And if you agree that there's going to be disruption, what's wrong with thinking about that? What's wrong with thinking about, if I couldn't do this, what would I do? Doesn't mean that's going to happen. But, as a coach, I hope people do strategic career planning anyway, and that's part of it. Like, where am I headed? And figuring out, what do I really want to do? What do I want to achieve as a person? What do I want to achieve as a professional? And aligning those things. Shane, did you want to say something else, or is your hand just still up?
Oh, sorry. No, I just didn't
No,
turn
no
it up.
worries. Okay, cool. Cool. Marco, I gave you speakability. I thought, why not? Curious. It's been a while. Hey, good to see you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's times are changing, right? Or may you live in an interesting time, as they say in the Chinese proverb. I think part of the problem really is people still don't know how to approach these changes right now with AI, with priorities of companies. It's changing so quickly that it's really, really, really tough to find the golden bullet that solves those problems. What I've seen happen quite a bit in organizations is that the roles themselves become more organic, right? So product managers, we know what a product manager should, like, let's say, by the book do. But for the most part, companies,
I'm
it's
not
not
going
that they
to.
don't need it, it's that the requirements change as the market changes. So a product manager may be responsible for, say, a product or a service one day, but it may be more in the relationship business, the networking, the professional services environment a day later, right? And particularly when it comes to AI, it's yeah, I would say in the future, with the advent of AI, we're not going to have clearly defined roles anymore. And to Busra's point, uh, try to learn as much as possible. Right. Right now, I've also moved in the organization kind of sideways from product management more into program management. And I'm learning new things, which are probably going to help me be a better product manager because I just understand the periphery and the dependencies a bit better. And same thing, if you look at AI, it's just taking input and it's finding patterns. And it's the same thing here. We have to do exactly that. We have to find the commonalities between these different disciplines and just be able to adapt and shift with it, with the requirements. Because some of our work may be offloaded to automation, other pieces of work may still need a little bit more of the human touch. It just depends entirely. So I am curious. I am concerned. I'm not quite freaking out. I'm not seeing it in dark colors, I would say, but it's again, be flexible, be adaptable.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
Muted.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
Alexi, I made you a presenter.
I'm not going to.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to add, it was quite interesting discussion. We discussed here project management, PMI, PMP, and so on and so forth. And frankly speaking, I think it's all about the tools. Like for project management body of knowledge, it's set of tools. AI, it's a new tool. And the biggest difference that we see right now is learning new things, trying to forget old things, and we need to be better in learning new tools. The more tools we'll use, the better we'll be with these tools, and the more tools will be like for this exact case, the better we are. And I think all of us can see right now, if we compare our like industry 10 years ago, right now, people are more and more unified, and every product manager is taking more and more skills, activities on their own. So I think that's across all the roles in the industry. The main goal and like the main idea is what tools to use and to know these tools good, especially when like they will be industry standard.
Yeah, a lot of good points. Agree. AI, in a sense, is another tool, but it's just also a paradigm shift and massively disruptive. And I wanted to call out that the work I'm doing outside of tech has highlighted some risks that I don't think we're talking about personal effectiveness. We're talking about the job market, how it'll impact our product. But I don't think a lot of people have thought about how it's going to impact the market. And very soon, all of your customers are going to have more information about the domain than you do. They're all going to have an attorney in their pocket for free. things are really going to change radically in terms of like empowerment and democratization. And guys, I'm going to have to run, but I want to give the last thought to Shane.
Oh yeah, thanks, Greg. Hey, I just wanted to mention there's a really good interview on the Lenny Rachitsky podcast, and it's with Michael Truell. He's the CEO of Cursor. And I think he said some things that were promising in that interview. He said really their goal is to make, and they're building the rapid like agentic AI basically, right? Where you prompt and it builds things very quickly. But he says we want a human first solution. And I think it's what they're kind of working towards which is good news for everybody, is I think they're going to democratize development at some point where you'll have a new programming language that's a higher abstraction layer where, like similar to what we're doing now, we're prompting and it's building and doing things for us. But I think there'll be more structure and guidelines to it. And I think learning to code is going to be available to everybody. And I think it will be a tool in every PM's tool belt without necessarily having to do, the formal boot camp or hardcore upskilling that we do today. I think you'll be able to learn faster. And I think you'll come to that space with an advantage as a PM because you're closer to customers and needs and problems, and you'll be able to build, I think, UI and solve issues maybe more intuitively than the engineers potentially, and maybe there's an advantage or opportunity there for PM's future state.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the whole paradigm is going to change. You're not going to become a coder, you're going to become a builder. And there will still be these low-level people like assembly programmers that still do stuff you can't do with the other languages. Thanks so much, everybody, for showing up. I will take the transcript, and I think I can still get to the chat. I'll do some Gen AI summarization, and I'll post that. I'll post my slides. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, would love to connect. And I think, we're just scratching the surface. There's a lot more to talk about. So thanks, everybody.